So you want her to chase you, then go ahead, text her. Double text her check-in every day. Remind her how much you care. See how well that works. Spoiler, it won't. The more you push, the more. She pulls away. Why? Because people don't value what's always available. But here's the paradox. When you stop chasing, when you pull back and focus on yourself, something strange happens. She starts to wonder. She starts to miss your presence, your energy, your attention, and before she knows it, you become the one on her mind. This isn't manipulation, it's psychology. It's attraction at its core. And it's something the Stoics understood long before modern dating ever existed. They taught that control over yourself is the ultimate power, not control over others. In this video, I'll break down exactly why distance makes the heart grow fond, and how applying Stoic detachment can make her want you more than ever. Let's get into it. Number 1. She becomes curious. Picture. This, you've been the one. She becomes curious, always reaching out, initiating every conversation, making sure she knows you're interested every morning. You send that good morning text. You make an effort to be where she is, hoping she'll notice. But then out of nowhere, you stop. No more texts, no more accidental run-ins, just silence. At first, she may not think much of it, but as the hours turn into days, a thought creeps into her mind. Why isn't he reaching out? The routine she once took for granted has been disrupted, and suddenly she's left wondering what changed. That's when the shift begins. By pulling back, you create an unexpected void. She's used to your attention, your presence, your eagerness. Now that it's gone, she's confronted with a new reality, one where she's no longer certain of where she stands with you. This uncertainty sparks curiosity. She starts to question, was he really that into me? Did I misread his interest? Has he moved on? And here's the beauty of it. When someone is left with unanswered questions, they instinctively seek answers. She starts checking her phone more often, glancing through old messages, and listening more attentively when someone mentions your name. The dynamic has completely shifted. Now you're no longer the one doing the chasing. Instead, she's the one left trying to figure out where you stand. This aligns perfectly with Stoic principles. The more you try to control someone or force an outcome, the less power you actually have. But by detaching from the need for her attention, you reclaim your position of strength. You're no longer seeking validation, which ironically makes you more desirable. People are drawn to those who are self-assured, who don't need them, but instead offer something of value simply by being who they are. Think about it. The harder you chase, the easier it is for someone to pull away. But when you step back, when you stop pouring all of your energy into pursuing her, she starts to feel your absence. And in that absence, intrigue grows. The truth is, people are naturally curious about what they can't fully grasp. The moment you stop making yourself so available, she begins to see you in a different light. It's not about playing games. It's about shifting the focus back onto yourself. When you prioritize your own life, your own growth, and your own peace of mind, you naturally become more magnetic. And just like that, without saying a word, you've changed the entire narrative. You're no longer the one chasing. She is not, because you manipulated her, but because you've become something worth wondering about. A puzzle. She suddenly wants to solve a presence she finds herself missing. This, my friends, is how attraction shifts, by letting go of attachment, focusing on your own value, and allowing her curiosity to do the rest. Number 2, she begins to reevaluate. Reevaluate. Something fascinating happens when you step away, your absence. sparks a shift in her mind. It doesn't simply go unnoticed. Instead, it triggers a wave of self-reflection she may have never experienced before. It's as if you've silently placed a mirror in front of her, forcing her to see her actions and choices from a new perspective. Suddenly, every interaction comes under scrutiny. Was she too dismissive when she canceled last minute? Did she seem indifferent in her responses? Was her laughter at your jokes genuine, or was she just going through the motions? The thought creeps in, could her behavior have played a role in your decision to distance yourself? At this stage, her mind becomes an investigative board, piecing together past moments like a detective searching for clues. She replays conversations, revisits text messages, and dissects her own behavior. Wondering if she misread the dynamic. Did she say something that pushed you away? Was she too emotionally distant? This isn't just a fleeting concern, it's a deep dive into her own patterns, something she might not have done if you had continued pursuing her. She begins questioning not just the relationship, but also herself, her level of effort, her emotional availability, and whether she truly valued what you offered. But why does this process unfold so intensely? Because your absence has created space that used to be filled with attention, validation, and pursuit. Now that void is impossible to ignore, and it forces her to confront what she may have taken for granted. This is where Stoic wisdom becomes invaluable. Instead of reacting impulsively, instead of chasing or trying to fix things, you've embraced self-restraint and control. Hallmarks of Stoicism, you've chosen to step back and let reality play out, rather than letting emotions dictate your actions. As Epictetus reminds us, we cannot choose our external circumstances, but we can always choose how we respond to them. You've opted for composure and inner strength, allowing her to come to her own conclusions rather than pushing her toward them, and often those conclusions lead to self-improvement with time and space. To reflect, she may start to recognize the imbalances in how she treated you. Perhaps she realizes she didn't put in as much effort as she should have, or that she was complacent in the connection. The realization hits. She had something valuable, and now it might be slipping away. This is the power of detachment, not as a form of manipulation, but as a means of allowing both people to grow and become more self-aware. You're not forcing change, you're creating the conditions for it. While she's lost in reflection, you're focused on your own path, investing in your growth goals and well-being. You're not lingering in limbo, waiting for her realization. You're embodying resilience, a key Stoic principle. You understand that your worth isn't defined by someone else's attention or affection. It comes from within. This places you in a position of quiet strength, where your peace and purpose remain intact regardless of external outcomes. When the time comes and your paths cross again, don't be surprised if you notice a shift in her demeanor. She may be more present, more engaged, and more appreciative of your presence. Why? Because your silence gave her the space to reflect and realize what she could be losing. It's a situation where both of you have had the opportunity to evolve. You've cultivated self-mastery, and she's gained a deeper understanding of what she truly values. So if you ever doubt whether stepping back is the right move, remember this: walking away doesn't mean losing power. It means reclaiming it. By choosing self-control over desperation, you gain clarity, confidence, and the ability to shape your own reality. This is Stoic wisdom in action, understanding that your peace and purpose are not dependent on anyone else, but firmly rooted within yourself. Now, before we move on to the next point, take a moment to reflect on this truth. If this resonates with you, I'd love to hear your perspective. Drop a comment below, or simply type, "My value comes from within your insights and experiences." Fuel this community, and I appreciate every one of you for being part of this journey. Let's keep moving forward. Number 3, she becomes aware of her emotions. Pick picture. This you've been. She becomes aware of her emotions, investing your energy, always making the first move, ensuring she feels noticed, appreciated, and pursued. Every text, every interaction, every thoughtful gesture. It's all been part of your effort to stay on her radar. But then something shifts, not because you're angry or discouraged, but because you've embraced a deeper truth, one that Stoicism teaches. Well, you step back, you let go of the need to chase, and in doing so, you give her something she never anticipated: the room to truly process how she feels about you. It happens subtly, almost like a change in the atmosphere. Suddenly, your presence isn't a constant anymore. She no longer has your attention readily available at any moment. And with that absence, the balance of power quietly tilts by, withdrawing you. Introduce a thought into her mind, one that had never fully formed, before she begins to feel something she hadn't acknowledged, an awareness of emotions that had been buried beneath the surface. This directly aligns with Stoic philosophy. You've stopped trying to control the uncontrollable, her reactions, her decisions, her level of interest, and instead you've placed the focus where it belongs, on yourself. Rather than fixating on how she perceives you, you invest in your own growth, your own confidence, your own sense of peace. And that's when something fascinating happens. By prioritizing your own self-respect, you force her to reflect on what your presence actually meant in her life when you were always there, texting, calling, planning your next moment together. She never had to question what you brought to the table. It was effortless, even expected. But now with that presence, missing a gap forms, and nature despises an empty space. She starts to notice things she once overlooked: the warmth of your words, the comfort of knowing you were there, the subtle ways you made her smile. It's like pressing pause on a film. Suddenly she's replaying past moments, viewing them in a way she never did before. This is where the true impact lies. As Marcus Aurelius wisely put it, the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Your absence isn't a loss. It's a catalyst, the very thing that seemed like a setback. Your silence becomes the force that makes her recognize your value. Value, a memory, resurfaces, a quiet moment, lingers in her thoughts. A notification that isn't from you feels oddly disappointing. Each small realization builds upon the last until she arrives at an undeniable truth. You mattered more than she realized. But here's the key. This doesn't happen overnight. It's a slow burn, much like embers catching fire. At first, it's just a passing thought. Then she finds herself wondering where you are, what you're doing, and more importantly, why you're no longer around. That subtle ache of absence begins to take hold. And the best part, she's coming to these conclusions entirely on her own. You haven't pleaded, you haven't chased. You simply created the space for her to feel it. So gentlemen, sometimes the most powerful move isn't proving your worth through constant effort, but through quiet detachment. When you step back, you give her the opportunity to realize what she had. When she had you, and when that moment of clarity strikes, it's impactful because it's her realization, not something you had to persuade her into. That is Stoicism in motion, mastering yourself and allowing the rest to unfold naturally. Number 4, understanding your value, the moment you pull back from. Understanding your value, constantly seeking her attention or approval. Something unexpected begins to unfold. You transform into something rare, something worth noticing. But the real shift happens not just in her perception, but in yours as well. When you stop chasing, both of you start seeing your true value in a whole new light. Think about it. When you were always available, always there. It became easy for her to overlook your presence. She might not have fully grasped the depth of what you brought into her life, but now that you've created space, your absence starts to take center stage. And that absence, it carries a weight that no words ever could. Suddenly, everything she once took for granted about you is now impossible to ignore. Maybe it's the way you could always lift her spirits when she was down, or how effortlessly you understood her moods. Maybe it's the little things, the thoughtful texts, the way you remembered her favorite song, or the comfort you provided without her even needing to ask now. In the quiet moments, she's reflecting on all those details she once overlooked. She's realizing that the things she dismissed as ordinary were actually what made you extraordinary from a Stoic perspective. This isn't just about her recognizing what she lost. It's about you reclaiming your sense of self by stepping back and refusing to seek validation. You're embodying a fundamental Stoic principle. Self-respect. Your worth is not tied to another person's attention or affection. You are valuable because of who you are not, because of how much effort you put into being noticed. And while you're focusing on your own growth, pursuing your goals, finding joy in your own life, she's beginning to understand just how much you meant to her. She's recalling those irreplaceable moments, the laughter, the support, the feeling of having someone who genuinely cared what's happening. Is simple. She's realizing your worth not because you pleaded for her attention, but because you removed yourself and allowed her to feel the space you once occupied. So while you continue living your life, learning and evolving, she's left with a new perspective, one that makes her see you in a way she never did before. And when that realization dawns on her, it's as if she's uncovered something rare, a hidden treasure that she never truly appreciated until now. That recognition, that's where your strength lies. You're no longer the one chasing. Now the roles have shifted before we move on. Take a moment to reflect on this truth. Knowing your worth and stepping back doesn't just change how others see you. It transforms how you see yourself when you stop running after someone and start investing in yourself. You take back control of your happiness. If this message resonates with you, show some support by liking this video and sharing your thoughts in the comments. And if you're ready to fully embrace your power type, I take charge of my life below. Let's continue this journey together. Number 5, attraction amplified. Attraction amplified. We've all heard the phrase, distance makes the heart grow fonder. While it might sound like a well-worn saying, there's a strong psychological truth behind it. But when viewed through the lens of Stoicism, it takes on an even deeper meaning. When you pull back, you're not just creating space. You're cultivating curiosity, an air of mystery, and most importantly, a sense of worth. Let's break it down. Instead of constantly texting her, checking in, or striving to impress her, you redirect that energy toward yourself, your ambitions, your discipline, your personal growth. From a Stoic perspective, this is where true power lies. You're no longer operating from a place of neediness or external validation. Instead, you're grounded in your own purpose, and this quiet self-assurance speaks volumes without the need for words. Now imagine how this shift looks. From her perspective, you're no longer readily available at all times. You're not seeking her attention or making her the center of your world. Suddenly, she begins to notice the difference. She starts wondering what's keeping you occupied. Have you thrown yourself into your career, your fitness, your passions? The unknown sparks. Curiosity and curiosity breeds attraction. When someone becomes a bit of a mystery, it's human nature to want to unravel it. Your absence gives her space to reflect. She starts recalling what initially drew her to you. Your drive, your charm, the way you made her feel. Perhaps these qualities were overshadowed before, lost in the constant pursuit, but now in your absence, they stand out more clearly. It's as if she's seeing you with fresh eyes, appreciating the very things that once captivated her. One of the core teachings of Stoicism is that we cannot control external factors such as how someone feels about us, but we can control ourselves by stepping back. You're taking control of your own narrative. You're proving not just to her, but to yourself, that your happiness is not dependent on her attention, and that in itself is incredibly attractive, self-respect. Independence and emotional composure are qualities that naturally draw others in as you focus on yourself. Something interesting happens. She begins to sense the shift. If she was once accustomed to being your priority, she now feels the absence of your attention, and that absence creates an effect, one where she starts thinking about you, more wondering why you've pulled away. This curiosity, this uncertainty fuels her attraction. But this isn't just about what she imagines when you stop chasing. You send a clear message. You value yourself. You won't compromise your self-worth in exchange for someone's approval. This is where Stoic philosophy shines. You remain calm, unshaken, and detected. Added from external validation, you control your own path, your own growth, and that speaks louder than any words ever could over time. She will start to notice things about you that once seemed ordinary. Maybe it's your confidence, the way you carry yourself, your ambition, or the effortless way you could make her laugh with distance. All these qualities become magnified, and she sees you in a new light, one of increased admiration and desire. Gentlemen, here's the paradox of attraction. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is nothing at all, by resisting the urge to pursue, by allowing space. Instead of filling it, you create a dynamic where her interest flourishes naturally. And when attraction grows on its own, without force or desperation, it becomes even stronger. Number 6, she reassesses her. She reassesses her priorities. Priorities, consider this when you're always available. She may not fully appreciate the little things you bring into her life. Maybe your conversations lifted her spirits, or your presence gave her a sense of comfort. But because you were always around, she never had a reason to reflect on it the moment you step back. Though the silence you leave behind forces her to think. She starts to notice what's missing, and more importantly, why she didn't value it. Before, this isn't just an emotional reaction, it aligns with a key Stoic principle. Detachment from what you cannot control. Stoicism teaches that true power comes from focusing on yourself rather than relying on someone else for validation. By stepping away, you're not playing mind games or trying to manipulate her feelings. You're simply allowing her the space to recognize your value on her own terms. For instance, if you were the one always initiating conversations, she might have taken your attention for granted, assuming it would always be there. But when you stop reaching out, that absence becomes noticeable. She starts wondering why she hasn't heard from you, why the warmth and connection she once felt is now missing. This shift in awareness makes her reflect on your presence in a way she never did before, when her priorities shift to include you. It's no longer just about casual interest. It's a sign that she genuinely values your presence and is willing to invest in you. But here's the key. This transformation wouldn't have happened if you hadn't pulled back by embracing Stoic wisdom and refusing to chase validation. You give her the chance to come to her own realization about your worth. Ultimately, when a woman begins to refocus her attention on you, It's a clear indicator that she's not just curious, she's committed. This realignment only happens when you step back, relinquish control, and trust that what is meant for you will naturally gravitate in your direction. Number 7, the fear of losing. The fear of losing you. You imagine this the moment you stop chasing her. The entire dynamic shifts. The certainty she once had that you would always be pursuing her suddenly vanishes. What used to be a situation where you were vying for her attention has now transformed into one where she's questioning why you've pulled back. This unexpected change sparks a deep-seated fear, the fear of losing you. When something that felt guaranteed starts slipping away, human nature kicks in. We tend to appreciate what we once took for granted only when we realize it might no longer be ours. This psychological shift is powerful. People naturally crave what isn't easily available the moment you withdraw your constant presence. You create an air of scarcity. You're no longer an open book, now you're a puzzle. An intriguing presence that isn't so readily accessible. She finds herself thinking about you more than she expected. Suddenly, you're no longer predictable, and that uncertainty stirs her emotions. She might find herself checking her phone more often, waiting for a message that doesn't arrive as quickly as it used to. Thoughts creep in. Did I do something wrong? Did I push him away? In that space of wondering, the fear of losing you starts to grow. This is where Stoicism naturally aligns with the situation. By stepping back, you've demonstrated emotional discipline. You're not seeking external validation, nor are you desperate for her approval instead of reacting impulsively or clinging to a connection. You've embraced a calm detachment, a fundamental Stoic trait. This doesn't mean you're indifferent to her, but rather that you recognize your value and refuse to beg for anyone's attention. And what happens? As a result, the absence of your pursuit becomes impossible to ignore. She begins to feel the shift and may start reaching out more, sending messages or attempting to revive the connection. In a way, she starts mirroring the energy you once gave. Now she's the one making the effort to close the distance because she realizes what she might be losing. This reflects a crucial Stoic principle. When you focus on yourself rather than chasing someone's approval, you give them the space to acknowledge your worth on their own. This isn't about manipulation. It's about understanding relationship dynamics. By refusing to run after her, you're not playing games. You're simply prioritizing your own peace, growth, and self-respect. In doing so, you create the opportunity for her to recognize the value of your presence and to consider what it means if she no longer has it. But with this newfound power comes responsibility. As a Stoic, your actions must come from a place of self-respect, not control. The point of pulling back isn't to make her anxious. It's to remind yourself that your happiness isn't dependent on anyone else. It's about knowing your own worth and refusing to chase situations that don't serve you. By stepping away, you allow her to appreciate you in a way she couldn't when you were always there at the core of it. The fear of losing you is effective because you've made it clear you don't need her to be whole. You're already complete within yourself, and that is what truly makes you valuable. If this resonates with you, I'd love to hear your perspective. Have you ever experienced this shift firsthand? Share your story in the comments. Or if this message speaks to you, type "I am complete on my own." Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more insights. We're building something powerful here, and your support means the world. Now let's dive into the next. Point number 8, awakening her awakening. Her competitive instinct. Competitive instinct. When you were always the one making the effort, she held all the power. She had the luxury of being the one pursued, basking in the attention without needing to reciprocate. But the moment you remove yourself from that dynamic, everything shifts. Suddenly, it's not you seeking her validation. It's her realizing she has to earn yours. She's no longer just enjoying the chase. Now she feels the need to step up because the possibility of you being drawn to someone else is suddenly very real. However, this reaction isn't solely driven by jealousy. While that can be a factor, it's more about her proving something to herself. She wants to reaffirm that she's the one who holds your interest, the one who stands out among the rest. The second you stop making her the center of your attention, she begins to sense that your interest is no longer guaranteed, and that realization sparks something inside her. A need to reestablish her place in your life at this point. You may start noticing small yet telling shifts in her behavior. She might start dressing more thoughtfully when she knows you'll be around. She could suddenly take an interest in things you're passionate about, whether it's your favorite, hobbies, or even those places you frequent. In essence, she begins positioning herself in your world, subtly working to remind you of why you were drawn to her. In the first place, the irony, the more distance you create, the more she feels compelled to close the gap. But here's the key takeaway. This competitive energy doesn't just make her want to win you back. It also pushes her to improve herself in her pursuit of regaining your attention. She unknowingly elevates who she is. Whether she realizes it or not, the effort she puts in to capture your focus also enhances her own confidence and self-worth. And this is where the wisdom of Stoicism becomes invaluable. The philosophy teaches that true strength comes from self-control and an unshakable inner foundation by stepping back instead of chasing you. Display a quiet confidence that speaks volumes. You show her, without words, that your value isn't tied to her approval, but rather, it comes from within. You are secure in yourself, indifferent to whether she notices or not. And that in itself makes you more compelling. Instead of constantly seeking her attention, you shift your focus inward. You stop allowing your emotions to dictate your actions, and in doing so, you create space for her to take initiative. Your lack of pursuit sends a message. You're content with yourself and your life, whether she chooses to engage or not. This is what fuels her competitive nature, because if she doesn't act, someone else will. In the end, you've transformed into someone she didn't anticipate, a man who is sought after rather than one who does the seeking. You've become the prize, and she now finds herself in a position where she feels the need to rise to the occasion. So gentlemen, sometimes the most powerful move isn't to chase, but to step back and allow the situation to unfold naturally. By doing this, you not only awaken her competitive instinct, but also embody the Stoic principle of inner stability and self-sufficiency. You're not trying to force an outcome. You're letting things take their course, knowing that no matter what happens, your worth was never dependent on her in the first place. And conclusion. There you have it, the moment you stop chasing. Everything shifts. You move from being just another option to someone she can't ignore more, not because you played games, but because you finally recognized your own worth. This entire dynamic is a testament to the power of self-control, something the Stoics understood long before modern psychology ever put it into words. They knew that chasing validation weakens you, while self-mastery makes you magnetic. So if there's one lesson to take away from this, it's this: your value isn't determined by how much attention you give someone, it's determined by how much respect you give yourself. Now, I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever experienced this shift firsthand? Drop a comment below and share your thoughts, or if this message resonates with you, type "I know my worth" in the comments to affirm your mindset. And before you go, make sure to hit that like button It helps spread this message to more people who need to hear it. Subscribe if you haven't already, and turn on notifications so you never miss a new video. Finally, check out the videos on screen right now. They'll take you even deeper into mastering your mindset, relationships, and personal power. I'll see you in the next one. Stay strong, stay stoic.